You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Chris,
Jeff.
what are you doing here?
Well, guess what? I'm here to ask you what made you mad today.
What?
Or actually this week.
This week?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that's your segment. I don't want to push it on your segment.
Hey, by the way, I'm going to tell you something real quick. We're going to see how this goes.
Okay.
Because everybody always asks me what made me mad because apparently I'm passionate about certain things.
You're a very passionate person.
Yes. And then every once in a while they would ask me, I think I've been asked only like twice, what made Chris happy because I vocalized like this
Because you complain?
Well,
it makes you mad? It makes you mad that we ask you what made you mad this week?
It's a stereotype, Jeff. We don't like profiling. And so to assume that everything in Jeff's always happy and Chris is always mad.
I'm always happy.
So therefore, this is probably one of 2 times ever where we've actually asked the question directly to you. What made Jeff mad this week?
So literally like 8 minutes ago, I realized that was a segment. And what did I do?
You called Bonnie and Jenna
and asked them,
what made me mad this week?
Yeah, because I don't ever have it right on the tip of my tongue like you do.
Well, it's
you don't even. I'll say, it's what made Chris mad this week. I know. I already know what I want to talk about.
Your brain is delusional, and you forget things all the time.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance. Well, that is true.
I just walk around in this blissful ignorance all the time. Totally. No, you know what? I do go around. I'm a complainer. I complain about stuff all the time.
Oh,
that's
good.
so stupid. That's dumb. This is dumb. But I try not to be. I want to be a positive person. So I did call Bonnie, and she reminded me almost immediately.
I thought you said Jenna said.
It was Jenna. It was Jenna that said. So I have to travel a lot, right? So this is so you're always mad for people vicariously. You're mad about things for us, for us little people,
for the world.
So this is one of mine. So I wind up traveling a lot, and I fly a lot. As a matter of fact, I'm leaving the studio and I'm going to the airport, right? So I'm flying out for a meeting tonight and tomorrow morning. And so I'll tell you what makes me mad is the TSA lines.
Oh, yeah.
TSA lines make me so mad.
Now, aren't you pre-check?
I am pre-check. I am everything. I am everything. And yet
you're clear.
For some reason, I still get randomly selected for advanced screening, right? So going through Paris in particular, which just skip Paris, people. Don't fly through Paris.
Yeah, I had a really bad experience in Paris too.
So I've been through Paris this year. I've probably been through the Paris airport 10 times, maybe 15 times. And I've been stopped more than half the time for advanced screening. Random advanced screening.
Well, you sort of look shady.
Yeah, well, I fit every profile for a bad guy, right? Overweight, middle-aged white guy from America with a religious visa, whatever. So, anyways, I keep getting. So I got a little grumpy.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
Yeah,
and I asked the guy. I said, "How long has it been since you personally caught a terrorist?"
Oh, wow.
And he goes, "Oh, well, I've never. I said, well, how long has it been since your unit has ever caught a terrorist?" He goes, "Well, I don't know." I said, "Well, how long has it been since, I don't know, the entire U.S. So this was in the U.S. How many how long has it been since the entire U.S. TSA organization has caught a terrorist?" He goes, "I don't know." I said, "I can tell you, never. Right. Never. You've never caught a terrorist." So originally they told us, they imposed the whole TSA thing on us to catch terrorists. And they tell us every week, "Oh, we caught this person who had nail clippers. We caught this person." Right? Every once in a while, somebody's packing a gun or something like that. They've never said that they believed that the person was going to shoot the place up. It was somebody had a concealed carry gun and they forgot. Right. That's usually what it is. And but so they tell us every week that they caught somebody with nail clippers, but they have never declared. I mean, they let a guy through with bomb in his underwear. Right? They've done all those things, but they've never actually told us that they caught a bad guy. And I said, so never. So what you've done is we've spent trillions of dollars just inconveniencing travelers. That's all we've done. And so what happened was you used to have this target, we're going to catch terrorists. And then since we've never caught a terrorist, you moved the target over here and said, we're just going to inconvenience people, and it's preventative. Right? I said, but you can't even prove that your job is. And he goes, yeah, why don't you go ahead and bring your bag over here? Then he opened up, took everything out of my bag, spread it all over. He goes, oh, I guess everything's good. You're free to go. And just left all my stuff over. So I learned I shouldn't talk to TSA people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. But that's what makes me mad. It makes me mad that, it inconveniences millions of people.
He really did that to you.
He unloaded every single thing out of my bag. Every single thing. Rightfully so, because I was being sassy, I guess, right? And he has the authority, and I shouldn't have been being sassy. But it just makes me mad. We've spent trillions of dollars on this.
Yeah.
Right? Hundreds of billions at least.
Yeah.
Inconveniencing people and building an entire industry around something that has not actually produced what we said we were doing for 22 years.
Right.
So it's not like, well, let's just test it out and see how it works.
Right.
22 years later, we've never actually caught a terrorist.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what makes me mad. TSA lines make me mad. Now, what's really bad is I'm getting on an airplane. I'll probably get busted today.
Oh, you're getting on an airplane today?
I'm leaving this. I'm leaving the studio and I'm going straight to the airport.
And where are you going this time?
Raleigh, just down to Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, isn't that terrible? So TSA lines make me mad.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If I flew as much as you did, I would be upset too.
So, and it's not just me; it's for the people.
No,
right? Isn't that what you told me?
Your anger is
on behalf of the millions of inconvenienced travelers.
Yes. Yeah, because you yourself can deal with it. It's just that
I can deal with it.
Your compassion for others.
That's right. It's just that I'm thinking, look at all these poor souls that are struggling, standing in line, taking off their shoes and belts.
I do not believe that you
with 2 ounces
are more compassionate toward others
with 3 ounces of soap. Right. Can't have 3.5.
Right. So
I had a guy who was going to make me throw away. I had a little bottle of cologne. He's going to make me throw it away because it said, I forgot, it said it in milliliters, but didn't say it in ounces.
Yeah.
And I said, that's under 3 ounces. He goes, how am I supposed to know? Because it was in a larger bottle.
Do your math.
And so I pulled the calculator out and I showed it to him. He goes, how do you know that's a legitimate calculator? I said, why don't you pull it out? He said, I'm not gonna. He's going to throw away $80 bottle of thing. And I was like, yeah, you're going to have to go get your supervisor on that. So, yeah.
Wow.
Goofy, man. Anyways.
No, that actually made me mad just listening to that story. That made me mad.
Yeah. Okay. So it's on behalf of the people, Chris.
Yes. So today
we're talking about... if you're a TSA agent, thank you for serving your country. And if you ever see me, please don't stop me.
So funny. Well, today we're talking about Jesus forgives an adulterous woman. There's a woman caught in adultery. And this is one of the most powerful stories, I think, in terms of all things. Yeah.
So there is some question where this belongs in the book of John, right?
Yeah.
But it is one of the most sweet and precious engagements or encounters Jesus has with anybody. I don't think I can ever hardly talk about it without tearing up. So you find it in John chapter 8, verse 1. It says, Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives. So he's in Jerusalem, right? Mm-hmm. He returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning, he was back again at the temple. A crowd soon gathered, and he sat down and taught them. And as he was speaking, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who'd been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. Teacher, they said to Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say? They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him, but Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone. And then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you? No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. How powerful.
Yeah, super powerful. And so a couple things that stand out to me. The first one is that they never addressed the woman. They never. So there seems to be, it says that they said this to trap him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So their motivation for using this woman was to trap him. And so never at one time, as they're trying to decide the fate of the woman, do they ever allow her to even build her case with Jesus? So think about it.
Yeah.
So they're saying, Jesus, what is your verdict? But they never once say to the woman, plead your case with Jesus.
Well, it was pretty much a sealed up issue. They caught her in the act.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a death penalty issue.
Yeah. And by the way,
so
that's
there is
important.
no defense.
That's important to talk about.
Right.
So back then, what you're saying is that if you would cheat on your spouse, it was be put to death.
Yeah. That was the law. The law was, if you engage with in intimacy outside of marriage, it was a death penalty issue in almost every case. And it's interesting. Jesus doesn't deny that.
Mm-hmm.
He just goes, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they're like, yes, just must put her to death and all this stuff. Now, they're breaking the law because it's supposed to be both her and the guy. So where's the dude? Right?
Right.
That's fair to ask.
Mm-hmm.
They don't bring the guy. They just bring her. So the law would state that you're supposed to bring them both. That's what Moses' law said, was you're supposed to bring both of them. They were caught in the act.
Which means he was catchable.
Right. He was very catchable. He's running down the street with a sheet around his waist, running down the street, whatever.
Right.
It's easy to catch. And they only brought the woman because, men will be men, boys will be boys. Right. That's kind of the attitude. And so they're bringing her, and they're going to shame her. And it's easy to shame somebody who's weaker than you, right? And I think that's what's happening here. So they're breaking the law, and they're just going to accuse her. But Jesus acknowledges it. They say, oh, she's supposed to be put to death. And he goes, okay. So he doesn't deny the law. What they were trying to do is get him to break the law or to deny the law, and he doesn't, right? He says, all right.
Well, he where does he say all right?
Verse 7. So they kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, all right. So he's acknowledging that the law is the law.
Right, for sure. Oh,
Right,
okay.
right.
I see what you're saying.
Right.
He's acknowledging that what they're saying
is the law.
What they're saying is the law.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay.
Because they're trying to catch him,
Right.
and he's not letting them catch him.
Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to either show him as a person who doesn't have love and compassion, because he says, he's
Get the people to hate him.
gets people to hate him, or somebody to break the law of Moses.
Somebody who's unskilled in the law of Moses,
Right.
and then they bust him there.
Right. So they think it's the perfect trap.
Oh, yeah.
Because either
It is.
way,
It's an excellent trap.
whatever Jesus chooses, they win.
Right.
Because he's either going to be a lawbreaker of Moses, and they're going to claim that he's not from,
Right.
the Messiah. He's not the Messiah. Or he's going to be a person who's absolutely, a person not of love and forgiveness.
Right.
So Jesus, he doesn't, he says he stoops down and he writes something in the dust with his finger.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure that your whole life you've heard this story.
Oh, sure.
And there's been a lot of theory.
What did he write?
As to what did he write.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and it doesn't tell us, does it?
No, I wish it did.
So what do you think he wrote?
At this point,
let me say it differently. What could he have written?
yeah, I was going to say, he could have just been doodling. Like,
It's true. But why would they record that, though?
Because he wasn't really giving them any
Much attention.
He wasn't giving them any attention. They were demanding attention, and he was ignoring them. Right. So
it
some
could just be
people
that.
said it could have just been that. But I've heard, and I hope when we get to heaven, this is true. This is one of the first things I want to ask.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got a bunch of questions I want to ask in heaven. I would say this is in the first 20, and is what were you writing? Because I hope he was writing the names of those guys that had also been with that woman.
Oh.
Because these Pharisees didn't try to bring the man in. What if the man was one of these guys? How did they catch her?
Right.
Right? How'd they know it was going on? Right? So it would be great if, Jesus just stooping in the ground and he's writing, and Bob was with her a month ago, and Ralph was with her 2 weeks ago. Right?
Yeah.
What would that be? Or, Bob's been horsing around with his administrative assistant.
It would make the statement that he makes later on quite powerful, even more so.
Yeah.
When he says, "Let he who has no sin cast the first stone."
Right.
So if he's writing
If
down,
he's been writing it out in the dust in front of him.
right. So that or maybe just instead of writing out full sentences, he just writes names.
Oh, wouldn't it have been great?
Right.
I hope that's what he was writing.
Yeah.
I do. I hope that's what he's writing.
That is an amazing thought. I don't think I've heard that theory before. But I have heard that like he quoted a verse in the Old Testament, or he was reminding people of of love and forgiveness, or but again, it's not. It could be just like what you said, just ignoring them.
Yeah,
paying them no mind.
He could have been writing out the verses, because when Jesus gave the great commandments in Matthew 28, love God and love people, he was quoting Deuteronomy.
Right.
He could have been writing out both love God and love people, because even the religious leaders knew that those were the two big ones, right?
Yeah.
So how do you love God and love people at the same time? And so he could have been doing that, but I'm hoping he was writing the names of the guys that had been with somebody else, some other woman that also committed adultery, because it just jumps off the page to me. Where's the dude? Right? So they don't want to throw stones at the guy that behaves just like they do.
Which, by the way,
right?
Throwing stones at somebody's skull until they're dead.
Yeah, it's brutal.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
So I imagine the stones that you would have to have in your hands
maybe big,
are pretty big.
Yeah.
Right. So they're sort of standing there straining, I'm sure, holding this thing ready to drop it or whatever. Yeah. And by the way,
size of a cinder block kind of a thing, right?
Yeah. And so she's embarrassed. She's probably half unclothed.
Yeah, she's just covering herself up with whatever
she's just
has
covering
available.
herself, maybe.
And they brought out the shamer.
The shamer, what is that?
To shame her.
Oh, to shame her.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So she may have been.
Well, it is quite possible that she doesn't have anything on.
Right.
But again, so there's just embarrassment, there's shame, and which is another reason why she probably didn't speak up, right?
Right.
And so Jesus, it says that he's writing something in the sand. He stands up, makes an unbelievable statement, and then it says, and then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, would support the fact that he's just ignoring them, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm busy. Mm-hmm. And then he stands up, makes a statement, and goes back to being busy, right?
Sure.
But
or he's going back and finishing the names of the rest of the people in the crowd.
Maybe.
Because the old men leave first.
Yeah.
Right? So the old men are like, we're not.
But that's customary, right? Because the old men are the leaders, they're the wise ones, they're the ones that are looked to. And as the old men do, so do everybody else.
I would say that the old men left first because they had the most experience for sinning. And the young men were the zealots who really wanted to put this woman to death.
Mm. It could be.
Yeah.
Could be.
Most old men have a skeleton or two in the closet.
Yeah.
And so that's where she's at, or that's where they're at. So I would love it if he's writing names and he started off with the young men first. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, he said, he that has no sin, cast the first stone. Then he starts writing the big dogs' names. Would be so. I hope that's it.
I have a tendency to believe that the reason why the older men left first is because they're the ones that have the most wisdom.
Yeah.
And they immediately knew that Jesus was right.
Yeah. Well, he'd outplayed them. They're playing a game and he beat them at it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, he's playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, and by the way, we just heard on yesterday's podcast or maybe it was 2 days ago, where they're like, hey, why didn't you bring Jesus in? And the guards are like, because he's amazing. They said, nobody speaks like he speaks, right? So here they create a scenario, and they can't imagine the wisdom of Jesus. And what a wise thing to say. Okay, fine. Right. So he's not breaking the law of Moses. He's saying, I'll consent to the law of Moses as long as those of you who don't have any sin, let him cast the first stone. Mm-hmm. And so he's consenting to the law of Moses.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, under, just sort of...
he's submitting. He's submitting to the law of Moses.
Yes.
Right. And then he doesn't even say as long as. He's not making any demands. It's that they were doing this in front of a crowd. So he just said, so sure, all right, just he that has no sin, cast the first stone. And the whole crowd now is going, well, which one of these Pharisees is going to claim to have no sin? Right? They're all looking, and these guys realize, man, he backed us into a corner we can't get out of. And the old men are like, yeah, I'm going to leave.
So the big message here, well, actually, there's a ton of big messages.
Oh, man.
But one of the big messages is that we're all sinners. And I've been a part of a lot of conversations where people are angry at somebody. In fact, I recently had family members come to me. As you know, I become the pastor in my own family, right? Yeah. Which is you have to do a lot of years to do that.
A long time.
You got to put in a lot of years to get that. But people came to me and said
they've decided it's not just a little hobby that you've got going.
Right. And they said I'm so angry for years ago for this happening. And my response to them is, well, do you remember yourself back then? Because you're right. This person was this way, and you don't have a problem in that area at all. In fact, you're great in that area. But then you had the problem in this area, and that person that you're mad at, they're great in that area, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to understand that everybody has sinned. Everybody. There's nobody perfect. In fact, maybe perhaps the only thing we have in common listening to this podcast is every one of us are imperfect people, regardless of which country you're listening from, or which state or whatever it is. And so that's one good message, right? All of us need to recognize before we condemn somebody, let us recognize, we have sin in our own lives.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And what's another big lesson here?
I think he says to her, "Where are your accusers?"
Yeah.
Right? So they all leave, and Jesus still hasn't engaged her at all. He hasn't talked to her at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would imagine along with the accusers, the crowd disperse.
Well, it says actually they left until it was only the woman and Jesus.
Yeah. And so it's at that moment he stands up and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" And she says, "No, Lord." Lord is important.
Yeah.
Right? Lord means you're the ruler, or you're the king. You're the one with the power.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I really view that as a moment of repentance, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
or a coming to Jesus moment, literally
Mm-hmm.
there. And then he goes, "Neither do I." And then he says, "Go and sin no more." So all of us want him to say he's not going to condemn us. None of us want him to say, "Now go and sin no more."
Right.
Right? But there's this repentance moment, and repentance should lead to a change of heart and a change of life. Right? Those things kind of go together. And so Jesus is outrageously compassionate. He agrees with the law. He acknowledges it. All right, that is the law. He finds a way, which I love. That's what Jesus does. Jesus just finds a way. He finds a way because eventually he's going to pay the price for the law. He's going to fulfill the entire law. So it's not like, oh, the law is not important. The law is what's going to kill him, right? And he's going to completely fulfill the law. And so he's not just dismissing it going, "Oh, honey, we all make mistakes." He doesn't do that. He's going to die for her, and he knows it. He's in Jerusalem, just a few weeks. He's dying for her.
Mm-hmm.
And he had the right to execute her and then didn't.
Right.
But then he says, "I don't condemn you either," which is beautiful. He found a way. But then he says, "Now go and sin no more."
Yeah. Well, John 1:22 says that Jesus himself said, "Moses came to bring the law, but I came to bring both truth and grace."
Mm-hmm.
And he's demonstrating both truth and grace.
There's nothing better. There's no story better in Jesus' life and ministry than this one.
Yeah.
Of both truth and grace
Yep.
in one sentence.
Right.
Neither do I. Go and sin no more.
Right. Because it's hard truth.
It's
go
grace
and
and
sin
truth.
no more.
Yeah.
But it's complete grace. And so he brings, Jesus brings with him both truth and grace. He never shied away from hard truth for commandments of what God wants, but he gave incredible grace. You said outrageous grace, right?
Yeah.
Which is great.
It's scandalous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. Well,
Thank God. Thank God for it.
That's right. Amazing grace. So that's a great place to end. And hopefully we will see you next time on The Bible Guys.